According to a report, Russia has found vast oil and gas reserves in the Antarctic, much of it in areas claimed by the United Kingdom.
For decades, Antarctica has been the world's untouchable scientific reserve, a continent of peace where Russia is known only as a research partner. But this official story was just shattered by a chilling revelation from a Russian state-owned ship. Not a shared discovery, but a secret map detailing 511 billion barrels of oil. A colossal treasure located in a land where taking a single drop is forbidden. The discovery itself isn't the terrifying part. The calculated act of mapping it is. Why create a detailed blueprint for a heist you're not supposed to commit? What other forbidden blueprints are being drawn in secret under the guise of science? And could this map be the silent announcement that the race for Antarctica has already begun? The peaceful cover and the first crack. For a very long time, the entire world agreed on one thing about Antarctica. It was a special place that belonged to no single country, but to all of humanity. This was not just a nice idea. It was a very important promise called the Antarctic Treaty, signed in the year 1959 by the world's most powerful nations. The rules of this promise were simple and clear. First, no country could bring its military there, making it a land of total peace that would never be used for war. Second, and this is extremely important, no country was allowed to look for or take any natural resources like oil, gas, or minerals from the land or the sea around it. The whole purpose was to preserve the continent exactly as it is, a giant, open laboratory for science, where discoveries would be shared with all people for the good of the world. Russia was one of the very first countries to sign this promise, and for many, many years, its research stations seemed to be a perfect example of this spirit of cooperation, with scientists working together in the coldest place on Earth. But in May of 2024, a piece of information came out that created a very big problem for this peaceful story, revealing a deep crack in the ice of international trust. A report came from a Russian research ship, but this report was not about a normal scientific discovery like a new species of fish or changing weather patterns. It was a detailed map, a map showing huge amounts of oil and gas hidden under the Antarctic ice, an unbelievable amount estimated to be 511 billion barrels. This discovery was terrifying not because oil exists there, because scientists have suspected that for a long time. The terror comes from the fact that Russia was actively looking for it and mapping it out with great detail, which is something that goes directly against the spirit and the rules of the Antarctic Treaty. This forces us to ask a very serious question. Why would Russia spend so much time, money, and effort to find and map a giant treasure that it is legally forbidden to ever touch? Perhaps the terrifying truth is not the discovery of the oil itself. The truly scary part is that this huge oil field might just be the first piece of evidence, a single clue that points to a much larger, much more secret plan that has been happening in the shadows for a very long time. It suggests that Russia's science in Antarctica might just be a cover story, a perfect disguise for a hidden goal that, if revealed, would change everything we thought we knew about the world's last untouched continent. The economic trail and the overbuilt infrastructure. Let us look very closely at the evidence, because the details are extremely important in understanding this mystery. The ship that made the oil map, the Alexander Karpinsky, is not owned by a university or a group of private scientists who are simply curious about the world. It is owned by a company called Rosgeo, and this company is fully owned by the Russian government itself, controlled by the leaders in the Kremlin. This simple fact changes everything, because it means the search for oil was not a mission of scientific curiosity. It was a direct order from the government, an official state action to find out exactly where this great wealth was located and exactly how much was there. This is the behavior of a country that is making a business plan, not a country that is conducting pure research for the good of all people. It is the first step in a process of claiming something valuable, a secret inventory of a treasure that is supposed to be protected and left alone forever. But finding a treasure is only the first step, because a treasure is completely useless if you have no way to bring it home. This brings us to the next piece of evidence, which is the physical things that Russia has been building on the ice in Antarctica. Things that seem much too big and much too powerful for simple science. At a Russian base called the Progress Station, there is a runway for airplanes, but this is not a small runway for little science planes that carry a few people and some supplies. This runway is huge. It is more than 3 kilometers long, which is long enough for the biggest and heaviest airplanes in the world to land safely. To understand why this is so strange, you need to know what kind of airplane needs such a long runway. A famous Russian airplane called the Il-76, which is a giant military transport plane, needs a runway this long. This airplane was designed to carry very heavy things like army tanks, big trucks, and hundreds of soldiers all at once. So we must ask the simple question: why would a peaceful science station need a runway that is strong enough and long enough for a massive military transport airplane? Scientists do not need tanks or huge trucks for their research. The only logical reason to build such a powerful piece of infrastructure is to be ready for a future operation that involves moving extremely heavy equipment on a very large scale. When you put these two pieces of evidence together, a clear picture begins to form. First, the Russian government uses its state company to secretly map out the location of a priceless treasure. Second, the Russian government builds a giant runway that is perfect for the kind of military planes needed to carry the heavy machinery you would use to dig up and transport that treasure. It looks like a complete plan, a plan for taking resources that is being built right in front of the world's eyes, hidden behind the perfect cover of scientific research. This plan to get the oil makes a kind of sense, a greedy sense. But even this does not explain another, even stranger network that Russia is building all across the continent. A network that has nothing to do with digging or transporting. This network is designed for watching and listening, which makes us wonder, if their goal is just the resources under their feet, why do they need to have eyes and ears that can cover the entire continent? The spies' eyes on the ice continent. The giant runway at the Progress Station shows us that Russia is building the physical ability to move very heavy things in Antarctica, which would be necessary for a large-scale mining or oil drilling operation. But this does not explain the other, more secret network that Russia has been carefully building across its Antarctic bases. A network that is not made of concrete and steel, but of invisible signals from space. This system is called GLONASS, and to understand why its presence in a peaceful scientific continent is so deeply alarming, you must first understand what it is and what it was designed for. GLONASS is the Russian government's version of the GPS system that people all over the world use in their cars and on their phones. It is a complex system of satellites orbiting high above the Earth that constantly send signals down to the ground. And a small receiver can use these signals to calculate its exact position, its exact location on the planet, with incredible accuracy. This sounds very useful for science, and that is the official reason Russia gives for building GLONASS stations in Antarctica. They say it helps their scientists know exactly where they are in the vast, featureless landscape of ice, and helps them track the slow movement of glaciers. But this is only half of the story, the peaceful half. The other half of the story is much more serious. The GLONASS system was not originally created for scientists or for civilians. It was built from the very beginning by the Russian military for one primary purpose: to help the army win wars. It was designed to guide missiles to their targets with perfect precision, to show soldiers and tanks their exact location on the battlefield, and to track the movement of enemy ships and planes. This is what is known as a dual-use technology, which means it can be used for two different purposes: a peaceful purpose and a military purpose. By placing this military-borne system in Antarctica, Russia is installing a powerful tool that has clear military capabilities in a place where all military activity is completely and totally forbidden by the Antarctic Treaty. Let's think about what this really means. To make a satellite system like GLONASS very accurate, you need to have special stations on the ground, called ground stations. These stations receive the satellite signals and help to correct any small errors, making the whole system much more precise. Russia has been building these ground stations at its Antarctic bases, like the Bellingshausen and Novolazarevskaya stations. By doing this, they are creating a network of eyes and ears that covers the entire continent. With this network fully active, Russia would have the ability to secretly monitor the movements of every single ship and every single airplane from other countries that comes near or into Antarctica. They could track American supply planes. They could follow British research ships. They could watch the activities of every other nation on the continent, all while hidden behind the official excuse of scientific research. This gives them a massive intelligence advantage, a secret power to watch everyone else without them even knowing. Furthermore, this network gives them the ability to use that military accuracy for military purposes, if they ever chose to. It gives them the foundation to guide drones, to coordinate military movements, and to control the entire strategic space of Antarctica. So now, a much clearer and more frightening picture of the Russian strategy is coming into focus. The oil map we saw in the first chapter shows us the motive, the incredible economic prize they want to capture. The giant runway we saw in the second chapter shows us the logistics, the physical ability they are building to bring in the heavy machinery needed to take that prize. And now, the GLONASS network shows us the control system, the secret intelligence network they are putting in place to protect their future operation and to spy on all of their rivals. It shows that their plan is not just about getting rich. It is about complete strategic domination of the continent. A network like this, which controls the surface and the sky, seems like the final piece of the puzzle. But it is not. The most shocking discovery, the one that could give Russia an absolute advantage that no other country could ever hope to match, is not found on the surface or in the sky. It is buried under 4 kilometers of solid ice, in a hidden world that has been locked away from all life for more than 14 million years. And Russia is the only country in the world that is standing at the very edge of that world, about to open the door. The biological key and the big picture. Far beneath the Russian science base called Vostok Station, buried under a staggering 4 kilometers of solid, ancient ice, lies one of the planet's greatest secrets, a place called Lake Vostok. This is not a small, frozen pond. It is one of the largest lakes in the entire world, a massive body of fresh water that is completely pure and has been totally sealed off from the rest of the planet for at least 14 million years. Nothing from the outside world, not a single breath of air, not a single ray of sunlight, and not a single modern germ has been able to touch the water in this lake for an almost unimaginable amount of time. For decades, Russian scientists have been engaged in one of the most difficult and ambitious engineering projects ever attempted. A slow and careful process of drilling down through those 4 kilometers of ice to finally reach the hidden water of the lake. A few years ago, after a very long and difficult effort, they finally succeeded, becoming the first and only humans in history to touch this ancient, lost world. The official scientific reason for this incredible effort is to study a completely unique environment. Scientists believe that life might exist in Lake Vostok, but it would be a form of life that is completely different from anything we know. It would be made up of very small, simple organisms called microbes, tiny living things like bacteria that have evolved in total darkness, under immense pressure, and in complete isolation for millions of years. Studying these microbes could teach us about how life might survive on other planets, like Mars or the moons of Jupiter, where conditions are also very extreme. This is the noble scientific story that is told to the public. A story of pure exploration and the search for knowledge for all of humanity. But just like the GLONASS system, this scientific mission has another, much more serious side to it. A side that deals with power and strategic advantage. These tiny, ancient microbes from Lake Vostok are a specific type of organism that scientists call extremophiles. The name means lovers of extremes, and it describes living things that can survive and even thrive in conditions that would instantly kill most other life forms, such as extreme cold, extreme heat, extreme pressure, or total darkness. The ability to survive in these impossible conditions makes extremophiles incredibly valuable. Scientists around the world, including military scientists, are very interested in them because they contain unique biological secrets, special chemicals and processes that could be used to create powerful new technologies. For example, these microbes could lead to the creation of new medicines that can fight diseases in ways we have never seen before. They could also be used to create super strong new materials or incredibly efficient new types of fuel. And this is where the most frightening possibility comes in. Because these organisms are so unique and powerful, they could also potentially be used to create a new generation of biological weapons. Weapons that use living things to cause disease and death. A country that has exclusive access to a whole new world of unknown microbes. A country that is the only one that can study them and unlock their secrets, would have a massive, almost unbeatable advantage in the field of biotechnology. They could develop cures that no one else has, or they could develop weapons that no one else has a defense against. Now, when we put this final piece of evidence together with everything else we have seen, the full picture of the Russian plan becomes terrifyingly clear. First, the oil and gas map we saw in the first chapter is the economic engine, the giant source of money that will pay for this entire massive operation. Second, the giant runway and the potential for military transport planes we saw in the second chapter is the physical fortress and the shield, the infrastructure needed to bring in heavy equipment and protect their operations. Third, the GLONASS spy network we saw in the third chapter is the strategic control system, the eyes and ears that allow them to watch their rivals and control the entire Antarctic space. And finally, the exclusive access to the unique biological secrets of Lake Vostok is the ultimate prize, the wild card, a powerful and asymmetric advantage in science and technology that no other country can copy or compete with. When you look at all these pieces together, you realize that the terrifying discovery is not just one thing, it is the realization that these are not separate, random science projects. They are all connected parts of a single, coordinated, long-term strategy. This is no longer a collection of scientific activities. This is the quiet preparation for the end of an age of peace. The campaign has already been activated. Let us now return to the original, central question that started this entire investigation. Is it possible that all of these separate Russian activities in Antarctica are just a series of disconnected coincidences? Or are they all part of one single, coordinated plan? The evidence, when you look at each piece by itself, can almost be explained away with the excuse of science. A map of oil could just be for academic knowledge. A giant runway could just be for future safety and convenience. A satellite navigation system could just be to help scientists from getting lost. A deep drilling project into a lake could just be for the pure discovery of new life. But this explanation, the idea that these are all separate and innocent actions, stops making any sense when you place all of the evidence on the table at the same time and look at it together. The truth is, these pieces fit together too perfectly to be an accident. A state-owned company making a resource map only makes sense if you have a way to get those resources. The giant runway, perfect for military transport planes, only makes sense if you have a plan to bring in the heavy machinery needed to get those resources. Building a military-grade spy and navigation system like GLONASS only makes sense if you want to protect your valuable operation and monitor the actions of other countries who might want to stop you. And spending decades drilling to an ancient lake to find unique biological life only makes sense if you want to gain a powerful and exclusive advantage that no other nation on Earth can challenge. These are not separate stories. They are 4 chapters of the same book. And that book tells the story of a secret, long-term plan to take control of Antarctica. It shows us that Russia has been quietly and patiently building the complete foundation for a future when it can declare itself the master of the continent's immense wealth and strategic importance. This is not a plan for the distant future. It is a plan that is happening right now, and it is designed to be fully ready for a very important year, the year 2048. In 2048, the rules of the Antarctic Treaty can be reviewed and possibly changed if the member countries agree. Russia knows that the world might decide to end the ban on mining and resource collection then. They are not waiting for that day to start preparing. They are preparing now, so that when that day comes, they will be the only nation on Earth that is fully equipped and ready to act immediately. They are creating what is called a de facto reality, which means they are making a situation that is true, in fact, even if it is not yet true in law. While the law says no one controls Antarctica, Russia is building the infrastructure and the systems to ensure that in reality, they do control it. By the time the world is ready to discuss the future of Antarctica, Russia's presence there will be so large, so advanced, and so powerful that it will be impossible for other nations to tell them to leave or to stop them. So, the truly terrifying discovery that the whole world must now face is not a strange creature from a hidden lake or a lost Nazi base under the ice. The discovery is the plan itself. The terrifying discovery is the realization that one of the world's most important international promises for peace has been systematically and secretly undermined for years by one of its original signers. The quiet, Cold War for the last untouched continent has not been fought with soldiers or with weapons. It has been fought with science ships, with giant runways, with satellite signals, and with a very long drill bit. The battle for Antarctica did not begin with a loud explosion. It began with the quiet hum of machinery in the coldest place on Earth. And it has been happening all this time while the rest of the world was looking the other way.